Hello! Today is September 24th, and you're listening to I Think You Think. I'm Justin. On the other side of my computer screen is James.
Hello.
And Sequoia.
Hi.
James, I thought you were going to get the blue thing fixed.
I thought it was fixed, but I don't have the blue thing again.
Oh, jeez. Well, that's no good.
Maybe you somehow repulsed the blue thing.
It's possible.
Listen, if you can't get it fixed, it might be time for us to, find another host.
Someone who's got the blue thing, I understand.
It's
I'm going to go play Diablo 3 while you search for another host.
Oh, that's interesting, because Diablo 3 is what you're going to review today. I think you...
It's going to be live, too. I'm going to be like, I'm enjoying it. It's fun. I like it.
All right, so all three of us, carry no credentials worth noting, if you couldn't tell. I Think You Think's a podcast that focuses on what we, your hosts, think, but also what you think. We believe that the forum of ideas should be open to everyone, and everyone should have the opportunity to challenge and be challenged by ideas. We are not here to pass judgment, but merely discuss ideas and topics. This podcast, first and foremost, is a conversation between us and hopefully you. Feel free to email us, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and at the Chicago Now blogs. The links are in the underbar, and they can also be found on our Facebook page, facebook.com/ithink.youthink. I don't know which slash is the right slash.
It's always the same slash, so they'll know you mean.
Yeah, you guys figure it out. I Think You Think is produced by StolenArts Productions and is recorded live at Fisher International Studios. How's everybody doing?
We discussed it in the show. We've all had a couple of rough days, one way or the other. I'm like working out my last days at my job before I start the new one, and I've been packing and moving and packing and moving. In between, when I had free time, though, I've been playing Diablo 3, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So I'm just tired. It's like when I think about yesterday morning, that feels like 3-4 days ago, because I've been packing so much stuff every day. But it's good. It's exciting. By the end of Thursday, all that should be done. Done with the old job. Everything theoretically should be moved. At least everything of significance should be moved. So yeah, that's me.
Sequoia?
I am actually also moving, which has eaten up a lot of my life. I will not be fully moving into my new place until, well, fully I don't know, but I'm going to be, my official move day is next Tuesday, so my life's been eaten up by school and work and moving, and I have to multitask pretty much all the time, which is why during the podcast I'm going to be sewing my pants. Woohoo!
Nice. When I sew pants, I tend to use one of those electronic machines that does it for me.
A calculator?
Well, I'm not sewing myself a pair of pants from, like scratch. I'm more just fixing a hole.
Poser.
I would like to reiterate that if she can sew pants, I should be able to play Diablo 3. I'm just saying, I know it's been decided. This democracy thing isn't working for me today.
I was going to say that, sewing my pants is something I need to do, but I think playing Diablo is actually a necessity for you at this point.
It might be. James and I have played a bit of it, and he always puts me to shame when we play these kinds of games.
What? Oh, dude, you rock it when we're playing, but anyways.
Oh, that's really nice.
Nah,
you just play a lot more than me.
It's true. I do have a 60th level character already. I'm really close to being done with my third playthrough.
So the one good news that I have right now is tomorrow is the day that I make the final payment on the last of our 2 cars. So both of them will be paid off. I'm not planning on buying any of them, and the one that I'm paying off tomorrow has a warranty that still lasts until November. So if it breaks down, I'm still good for that amount of time, I guess. But that's the biggest. That's the huge news for me. Yeah, I mean, work sucks. That's kind of the way it is. Plus, since I work in a retail environment that is healthcare related, a lot of the stuff going on with the Health and Affordable Care Act is starting to not roll out as much as like everybody's starting to talk about it, and all my employees are starting to get really nervous about what the future sort of holds for us and their insurance and our insurance, and like webcams changing colors on me.
Yeah, it's weird though, because nothing's really set in stone yet, and like there's a lot of false information and people starting fires.
Yeah, I had a long talk with one of my employees today where I had to express to them, my son has come to join us, to express to them, some of the stuff that you were mentioning is incorrect. Like this is false information that you've actually been given. So we've got a couple of reviews that we are going to get into. As you've heard us talking about, Diablo 3 is one of them, and then I've got The Last of Us on the PlayStation 3 that I will be reviewing. So I'm going to actually, James, I'm going to let you kind of dive into your Diablo 3 talking. My son has given me the look that he needs to talk to me, so go ahead and take it.
Okay, Diablo 3 is, it's obviously the sequel to a game that came out a long time ago at this stage. It is a ton of fun. It's basically, the graphics aren't what you'd expect of a modern game, but the artistry with which they put into like the level of graphics they have is pretty phenomenal. I'm already on my third playthrough, and even on those following playthroughs, like the storyline stuff isn't as engaging, obviously, when you're hearing the same dialogue for the third time. You can skip through that stuff pretty quick. But the fun of the gameplay has really maintained. Because every playthrough, for the first 4 playthroughs, the difficulty ups a notch. And as you're progressing, I didn't hit 60th level till, deep into my third playthrough. A lot of loot drop for those that play games like that. It's always a lot of fun sorting through, finding those like sweet pieces of loot. The enemies are varied enough. You fight special enemies, so even though my character is at a level where he's very tough, I still get challenged regularly. It is an amazingly fun game. There is so much to do. Even though I'm doing the same things for the third time now, I'm still enjoying it. I feel like there's things that I missed in the first 2 playthroughs that I find in the third one. I'm not sure if some of that stuff changes as you get deeper into the game and there's more stuff that kind of unlocks. I haven't done a lot of research into that because, why research it when I can just play it? But, me and Justin, we've done some co-op as well. So my main is a Barbarian, the one I've been playing. They got a 60th. Me and Justin are playing an online co-op where I'm playing a witch doctor and he's playing the wizard. The other 2 characters they have are the monk and the demon hunter, which all seem fun in different ways. The online co-op, I feel like I'm almost playing a different game. Everything looks familiar. I kind of know what the enemies can do, but I have to approach it in a totally different way. So I play the game drastically different in the game that me and Justin are playing than I do otherwise. So I feel like, the final verdict for me, we've talked about, we've rated games before, and it's always that kind of dollar mark. Full price, totally worth it, $60, no problem. If there's DLC, I will buy it without hesitation. I bought the guide as well. Don't need it as far as I'm concerned, unless you collect guides for some reason. There's really no reason to get it. It's basic informational stuff that you can probably find most of it online, and most of it isn't really useful unless it's the kind of stuff that you really desire to have. Just to hit on the guide a little bit, stats on all the different monsters, a basic overview on the different classes, which you can get more detailed information online. All the loot drop, there's all the kind of names for different things. It goes into what's what and what different names mean, so at a glance you can see it. But it's not that hard to get in there and see what the stats are for something and what kind of effects they have without just looking at the name. You could memorize all this stuff and just look at the name and know, but it'd be kind of ridiculous. So in playing the game, you have your skills. There's not like a really broad range of things, but there's enough variance that I could completely revamp my character who's maxed out. So he has everything's open to my character now. I could completely rework him, and I would actually have to relearn how to play him, and I could probably do that in a couple different ways. Easy to navigate through the skills and figure out what's what. The equipment, easy to navigate. I guess in the PC version there was a different way to do it, but they have like a radio menu. Go through. It's pretty easy to sort through and see what you have. Yeah, I don't know. It's a $60 game. I'm having a blast. Justin, I know you've played it a little bit. Do you have any specific thoughts on the game?
When I started playing it, it was during the time while I was on vacation in Ohio. My younger brother had it, and so we got to play a lot of 3- and 4-person co-op because I come from a pretty big family, and my older brother has children. Has his eldest son is relatively the same age as my eldest son, and so there was a lot of me and my brother playing with my little brother, and sometimes one of my older brother's kids might have played with us, or my son might have played, and we did a lot of handing off. Like one person would play for a while. I mean, you'd play for 2 or 3 hours, and like you'd get tired of playing. Not because the game's not fun, but it's a pretty chaotic household, and so you just need some time away from it. And so you'd hand it off to somebody. You want to give them an opportunity to play, and so I've played it less time single player than I've played multiplayer, because after we came back from Ohio, I checked online. I found a Craigslist entry for the game by itself, no box or anything, just the disc for $40. And so I'm like, sweet deal. I'll take it, And so I drove out, got that. Game works fine, no problems, no scratches, nothing. So I got it for $40. I didn't get any of the fancy art or anything. However, my younger brother had bought the pre-order, so he had like the angelic wings and the special hat and everything that gives you a 25 bonus experience points every time you kill something. And so since I played not under his account, but while he was signed on and started the game, I got all that stuff too. And so it's kind of like I got the pre-order stuff and I didn't have to actually pre-order it. But I only got one set. I think that you get it for every single character you start with if you actually unlocked it. So I only get the one set, so I have to transfer it between the characters if I want anybody else to use it, which is easy. I mean, the game utilizes a system in which if you find items and different kind of materials and things while playing through with one character, you can put it in a chest that you can access that any of your characters can access. And so if you're playing as the monk and you come across something you're like, oh man, my wizard would love that, you can drop it in the chest. Next time you're playing your wizard, you can pull it out. The one thing that I really sort of like about it that James and I decided to do is the fact that he's got this barbarian that's level 60. I've got a monk that's level 30. I haven't played as much as him on that. And so we decided, instead of having such a disparate, because we started playing and it was basically me hanging out in the back while he went and killed things, and I just soaked up some free XP. So we decided to play a game where we both started at the same levels, level 1, and played it through. And we both kind of wanted to play controllers because I had picked a monk as my first guy, and I played him as like a frontline fighter. And you had picked the barbarian, which is also a frontline fighter. And so yeah, it's really interesting having two controllers out there in a game that you really sort of need somebody to soak up the damage, and we don't have characters that really are good at soaking up the damage. No, not at all. Like a couple of hits and we're done, so they can't get close to us at all. Yeah. So I think it's a great game. Even after playing it, I don't know if I would rate it as high as a $60. I would probably rate it a little lower. I think I got a good deal at $40. I would be willing to pay $40 again for it, but I'd probably be willing to pay more than that. I guess if I just had $60 and it was like, oh, well, would you buy this for $60? And I had the $60, I would probably think that $60 worth spending on it. I would probably rate it at more like a 55, like 5.5, just because I don't think that the pre-order stuff that they had as they're nice, they're kind of fun, but I don't think that they like are game changing. So and most of the
The
pre-order,
bonus XP I think is a little bit game changing, but like you said, like I can make as many characters as I want, pull that off, and then delete them, and then I could, just give that
you can
stuff
just give them to
maybe
people,
somebody.
yeah.
Yeah,
So it's not, yeah. I mean, I lucked out. I mean, I would probably be a little irritated that I didn't have it if I didn't have it, and so maybe that's what's coloring my opinion. Um, but all in all, I mean, it's a good game. It's a solid game. It's the only thing that's really kind of a drawback, and maybe it's because I've played so much of the multiplayer, is I have no idea what's really going on in the story. Like it's pretty much we go onto a map, we kill a bunch of things, we kill some big bad guy at some point. People talk, but I don't read it. I think I would maybe get more into the world if I played it by myself, read the story, read what was going on, read the like different character like relationships, and I know that some of the characters have relationships with some of the like bad guys or good guys or something, and I mean I think that there's probably a really good depth of story there, but the game is too fun to play multiplayer. Like I enjoy playing it with a lot of other people more than I enjoy like really reading along and knowing what the story is.
right. And it has like my first playthrough, I followed along, so I know the story. So, but once you've seen it once, you're not gonna, it's not as important to sit through all of that stuff again. You just want to get into the fun of the actual playing of the game because it's a lot of fun. Like combat is really fun. It gets, like you said, it gets really chaotic and crazy. Like I'm on, like I said, my third playthrough. So sometimes the amount of bad guys that I'm facing in a moment, because my barbarian is tough enough that I'm not like I die sometimes, but like I'm tough enough that I'm not afraid if there's a big group. So sometimes in moving around, I'll like aggro two groups at the same time or whatever. But the amount of stuff that can go on is just fantastic. It's a lot of fun. Like once you've gone through that first one, you've read all the stuff and experienced it. It's like skip this little story part. Let's go find another big. Let's see if we can find an even bigger group of monsters to fight now and see if I can survive that. You were saying about like having the higher level players and playing again. You can store the stuff in the chest. You also automatically, like the money you get is a pool. So as soon as you start a new character, you have the same amount of money as your higher level character does. It all sticks the same. So it really feels like having played through a couple of times when I start a new character that I've already achieved something. The work I've done, feeds into that next character in a way that's really it just feels kind of natural and easy. Because sometimes in games, like you can, work the system to make that happen. I feel like there's no work involved. I started a new character. I was immediately able to go to the merchant, equip myself up, to a decent degree to give myself an edge right away. Yeah, I'm having a ton of fun. I was playing as we were pre-showing this podcast today,
and that's it for the podcast. We're going to go ahead and go play Diablo 3. So I wanted to interject real quick here. One thing that I've posted on our YouTube is part one. I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch it at all. It's only got a couple of views, but my son and I actually started doing a Let's Play. We're doing it as part of the like kind of I Think You Think umbrella under like the Fisher or the StolenArts Productions. So I've been looking for something where eventually I'd like to do these with like the podcast as well, where we can play a game, record the stuff, and just sort of have maybe even have a topic we're talking about while we're killing a bunch of creatures and things, or whatever the game is that we're playing. And I think with the Xbox One, we're going to be able to do that really easily because I think it records gameplay and things like that. And then, so also thinking about investing in, some kind of a playthrough record DVR type thing. So yeah, there you go.
all you're talking about Diablo 3 is making it, like, I want to play it so badly, but, like, even if I had the capability to play it right now, I don't have the time. And James talks about it all the time. I'm just like, I just want to play. Just want to play. Makes me sad.
So we have...
It's better than I'm leading on to. It's even better.
God, don't tell me that. I can't hear that.
We have a Facebook chat where all three of us keep in contact with each other and organize things, and James is constantly keeping us up to date on what level his character has gotten to. So 60 is the max, though, right, James? You can't keep going.
No, like 60 is the max. Once you get there, like no more skills or anything unlocked. But 100 is the actual max.
Oh,
and
so you might unlock like higher strength and stuff like that, or?
I think so. I haven't really looked into it, and since I hit 60, the leveling seems to, like the XP build has seemed to slow down considerably. I feel like I would have, like at the pace I was going, I would have leveled again already, and I'm like maybe a little more than halfway. I don't remember, like when I logged on, when I got home, I was a little more than halfway through. So it feels like it's more like a slower crawl once you cross that line in 60. But everything's pretty much unlocked then. All your skills, there are like runes you can assign to your skills that give it like a different, you know, you have an attack, and maybe there's different thing you can pick from, once everything's unlocked, 5 different runes that you attach to it that might give it knockback or better damage or faster recharge or whatever it is, you know, a different kind of tweak to it. You can, all your crafting is maxed out at that point, or can be. You still have to collect things to like train the people that craft for you. But yeah, I mean, but basically you've reached the maximum level for access to things at 60th level. And I would presume that maybe like your hit points and things like that would continue to go up all the way up to 100. But I don't know. I'll let you guys know when I get there.
There is one
maybe
thing that
later
I think.
Today.
There is one thing that I think that I wish that was different about the game, and that has to do with the blacksmith that you do train. Once you've trained him up to certain points, you can't have him make less powerful magic items. And so you can, because I was having, when I was making gloves for my monk at one point, it was making like, I don't know, 5 or 6 levels higher than what I could even use, because that's what his thing was at.
Oh, you know, I'd have to look. I presume that you could, but I haven't tried. Every time I won't make things because I can't make them high enough level.
It could be that there's a button that you have to press on the thing. This is kind of a hallmark of these types of games where you go into the menus, not the menus, but the character sheet type thing, and along the bottom there are buttons you can press that are basically like quick keys that allow you to do certain things. Like you can add, and any RPG game that has this many types of items, I think, is amazing. I know you don't use it as much, James, but the ability to junk items, where you just say, yeah, I'm never going to be interested in that, just throw that in a junk, and then the next time I walk into a shop, I can just hit the junk all. Dragon's Age did that, I believe, where you can junk items.
World of Warcraft needed that.
Yeah.
Good God.
Yeah.
They might have it by now, I don't know, but the amount of, like, crap that would accumulate in my bags was ridiculous.
And I don't like I want to look at the item once, say yes or no, and then never have to look at it again. And I don't like doing that when I'm sitting at a shop. Like, I'd rather just do it while I'm just out in the field, and I'm like, okay, good, no, or yes. So I like that feature. I know you don't use it as much, James, but
yeah, well, you know, I don't really change my equipment in the field very often unless I come across like the legendary items. Because there's gray items, which are basically like half broken already. White items, which are your basic non-magic. Blue, which are, you know, your beginning magic, which once you reach a certain level, you're never going to use.
Yeah.
Then there's yellow, which is like the first tier of like more complicated
They're the
magic.
rare ones or something, I think is what they're called.
Yeah. And then orange is the legendary items, which I am mostly orange on my guy now, but not completely, even at this level. So like I will wait till I fill up. I'll go back. I'll look through. I'll check stuff then, and then I go because you can salvage magic items to get crafting materials to craft other items later. And then I'll go salvage everything really quick, and then I'll go sell everything really quick that isn't salvageable, the non-magic items, and then I will go to my stash and drop everything else in there, like any gems I've collected, all the crafting materials I've gotten, and then I jump back through. But you know, I've like for some reason I've been lucky enough to kind of be ahead of the curve with my items or my build or whatever for a while, so I'm not in a rush to change out my stuff. If I can find something better, that's cool, but my character is powerful enough right now that it's not important for me to swap stuff out. And I think early in my playthrough, like my first playthrough especially, I was probably doing that more often where I was looking at stuff while I was out in the field. But that's before I even knew I could junk stuff. So, but yeah, I don't know. Play it however you want. It's a fantastically fun game.
So, yeah, I mean, it's graphics-wise, there's nothing spectacular about it. It's solid. It's good. I mean, there's every once in a while you get good amount of monsters on the screen and everything. I mean, I don't think that there's anything that's like groundbreaking or anything about the graphics, but I could be wrong.
I mean, the fact that so much can happen on the screen all at one time without it ever feeling laggy is phenomenal. So they found that like good place, you know, where they are, you know, good graphics, but I mean, definitely not up to par. Not especially the second game that we're going to review today. I mean, that's the whole another level of graphics.
Well, Blizzard's never been particularly known for the graphics. They've never really.
They're not. They're more about the characters and the RPG elements more than anything. Those kind of top-down adventure games.
Because I mean, look at World of Warcraft. I mean, the graphics on that are, I mean, compared to what you could be, they're pretty bad. But it's not really about the look of it necessarily.
But MMO, again, you're stepping into a whole other realm of like graphics, you know, because you want to appeal to as broad of an audience as possible. You can't bring it to the top end. You know?
But none of their games have ever really tried to compete in that arena.
Yeah, not to mention that when you're dealing with something where there's a lot of information going back and forth from a lot of different people to, you know, servers all over the place, you kind of want to make the graphics not be something that's going to slow it down that much. So, I mean, I could imagine that they could make an amazing game with beautiful graphics and still have really awesome multiplayer, but I think it would take a lot of investment.
Yeah, and I mean, realistically, even though like the graphics maybe aren't, you know, way up here as far as detail and everything, what goes on in the game, like the background scenes, like there's one part where you're kind of running around the top of this castle doing different things, and you can like see the battle out there in the field, and it's amazing. Like I'll stop every now and again and like bring my character to the edge and just be like, man, what's going on out there, you know? So there's a lot of detail. It's not that the graphics are bad. It's just, you know, they've brought the detail down to a level that allows so many more things to go on simultaneously.
Right.
But again, I love the game. I was thinking about giving up podcasting and eating to do it, but I decided that I wasn't.
So that was we took a decent amount of time on that one. I'm gonna pull this up real quick. Nope, this is taking too long. So I'm not going to worry about it. We're just going to dive into the second review for now, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. So the second game that I play is Last of Us, which I also played while I was out in Ohio because this is a PlayStation 3 game. I don't own a PlayStation 3. I've wanted to own a PlayStation 3 at various times, but I've never had the money during the time when it was a good deal to get one. and was interested in getting one. Last Christmas I was going to buy one. I actually bought it and then returned it because I just I didn't feel comfortable spending. It was a great deal for the PlayStation 3, but I was like, I really don't need this. I'm just buying it because I happen to have the money, and I'd rather save this money because it's not money that I really want to spend on this. Kind of disappointed, but I'd like to have had a PlayStation 3. I'm never going to get one, but I've got an Xbox One coming, and so it probably won't be a while. It'll probably be a while before I get a PlayStation 3, if I ever do, as the PlayStation 4 is also coming out, so who knows. Anyway, so Last of Us is, first of all, my brother was raving about this game. My older brother, he was very happy. I mean, he loved it. He thought the story was amazing. And so maybe to a certain extent, to the game's detriment, when I was going into it, I was expecting something different. Like, my idea of an amazing story is something where you really get into the characters. It really changes how you feel about them. A perfect example of games like that are the Walking Dead series on the Xbox One Arcade or the Xbox Live Arcade. I think that's got a tremendous story that really drags you in, and the graphics are not that great. They're cel shaded. They're cartoony almost, but the story is amazing and the characters are real, and you can affect it. You are involved in affecting it. You're not just a passive watcher. Last of Us is different than that. You are more of a passive person. You don't get any opportunities to make decisions that really affect the future. You're just playing through a story. Basically, you're playing through a story in which the amazing bits of action that you play are punctuated by these cutscenes in which the story unfolds. It's a great story. The graphics are phenomenal, really, really good. It really shows off the PlayStation 3's capabilities. Not that I don't think the Xbox 360 could do it, but there's a quality to it that just feels very PlayStation 3. You also see that same sort of quality in Uncharted and things like that. There's just there's something about it that when you see that game, you just know that's a PlayStation 3 game. Or maybe I just think that that's the case. But so it's beautiful graphics. The levels are laid out very well. This is where the game was kind of a struggle for me, because I didn't read anything about this game. I wanted to try to have as pure of an experience as possible when I was going to play it, and so I didn't know what it was like. I had no idea. I knew the basic story was the idea that a zombie apocalypse happens. It's not zombies in the dead or coming back to life type thing. I'll talk about it in a second. But the zombie apocalypse happens, and then 20 years goes by, and the game actually takes place 20 years after this apocalypse has happened, and how society has basically fallen apart at this point, and where it's at. And you play this character who was there at the beginning, and 20 years has gone by, and you're now here at this point. And then it takes place over roughly a few months, a year's time, the game takes place. I don't want to ruin anything because the story is great. And anybody who has a PlayStation 3, this game is worth the buy. There you go. So this game is worth the buy. I'll get back to how much I think it's worth, but it's worth it to buy it, whatever price I give to you. If you see it for that price, pick it up. Don't hesitate unless it's do I eat or do I play Last of Us? I would probably play Last of Us, which is more important, playing video games or food.
That's the second time that's come up in this podcast.
Yes.
Well, it's really about what feeds your soul.
That's right.
I'm waiting for 6 people to pop into the podcast and it be an intervention.
So this game is first and foremost, this is what they call a yeah, I had the specific terminology for what it's called, and I always feel like I don't get it exactly right. They call it an action-adventure survival horror. Um, I really felt like it was. If you ever played any of the Splinter Cell series, where it's a little bit about creeping around and sneaking up on people and trying to sneak through past enemies, that's a lot of what the game is. But you don't have to necessarily play it that way. You can play it more like Gears of War, where there's enemies coming and you use cover and you pop out and shoot people. However, it's much harder to play that way because you're limited in the amount of resources you have. So you don't have like an amazing amount of bullets or anything. And so a lot of times the game sort of just lends itself to being more of the, sneaking around, trying to get the drop on. Because it is very unfair to you. I mean, there's you by yourself against, I don't know, rooms of 8, 9, 10 people, and they are more powerful than you unless you can get the drop on them. So it doesn't always lend itself to, in a pinch, yes, maybe you could unload a few bullets into their faces and get away with it. But in general, you kind of have to do the sneaky thing. This was kind of a struggle for me at the beginning of the game because I'm not a big fan of those type of games, and I'm certainly not a big fan of like the scary survival horror type games. They get, like, I couldn't play Dead Space for very long because it scared the crap out of me. Condemned, I think, Condemned or Convicted or something like that.
I think Condemned is.
It was a launch title for the Xbox 360, and then there was a Condemned 2 later on. And those games were hard for me to play because they were very scary, and I don't like playing really very scary games. It probably harkens back to when I was younger, and I used to play Resident Evil, and it scared the crap out of me.
Well, I agree with you. Just to interject for a moment, I feel like those games build tension, and I actually play video games to relax.
Yeah.
So. Like I feel like there's a place for those games, but I don't really enjoy them either.
Yeah, it's hard for me, and so I wasn't expecting that game because, like I said, I had a completely different concept of what this game was going to be. I thought it was going to be like an open world type game. I was expecting like a Red Dead Redemption sort of game in set in a zombie apocalypse or a Fallout 3 type thing. I did want to mention about these zombies. I didn't look it up until I was actually doing a little bit of research for it because they did talk a little bit about it, but I don't remember it. Basically, these zombies, what had happened is there's a fungus called cordyceps fungus. It exists. It's a real fungus. It's common with arthropods. What it does is this fungus attaches itself to like ants primarily in like the rainforest. It grows into their brain, takes control of them, makes them climb up into trees, and then just hang out there while it eats the inside of it and turns basically this ant into a giant fungus, a little fungus tree, and then it spreads its spores. And like that's basically sort of what is these zombies are this strain of fungus that now affects humans. Because this strain of fungus does not currently affect humans. And so that's kind of the whole crux of where these zombies come from. And so I was like, ooh, wow, that's kind of fun. Zombie ants, zombie people. But anyway, so you don't just fight these zombies. There are elements where you fight the zombies, and sometimes you have to fight really bad people. Like horribly bad people that do really bad things. But the character you play goes through this story arc in which there's really this gray area between what makes somebody good or bad, or what's the truth, what's not the truth, and that's the whole kind of that aspect, that story. It's a great story. The characters are well developed. They used motion capture for the actions, which always makes a very believable movements and very believable acting, even with the voice acting. They did it in Halo 4. I mean, it adds so much. I love that games are doing this now. because the characters are believable. It's not just great voice acting. There's actual acting that's going on there. And then that brings me to my last point, which I will actually quote my brother as saying. He said, they sometimes talk about games as works of art, and this game is a perfect example of what makes video games works of art. So, there you go.
So what's the price point for you?
I would say that this game is worth $50. I wouldn't say it's necessarily worth $60. I think it's a good game. Don't get me wrong. But it has just the one story. You can play through it a lot because there's lots of things to find and things like that, but there's no multiplayer capability, which some games like this, they have made multiplayer capability. Splinter Cell in some of the later editions did have some multiplayer capability, not playing through the actual story, but other side quests. It would be nice to see that kind of stuff in a game like this. Maybe it would be harder to do, but and maybe that's why they wanted to focus more on the story. I think that having more control over how the story went would be nicer, and so that. But I'm a big fan of that kind of thing, and so somebody who plays games more for a kind of being as witnessing a movie and not interacting as much in the movie. Would probably like this game more than me. I like to where my decisions make an effect on the world. And so that's probably why that aspect of the game I wasn't as excited about. But good voice acting, awesome graphics. The gameplay, I felt like the controls felt funny, but I haven't played a PlayStation game in a long time, and so when it tells me to press things like X, I don't press the same button. For me, X is it's hard to explain, but on a PlayStation, it's a square. For me, that's X because that's X on the Xbox 360, and what it wants me to press X is the A on the Xbox 360, and so things like that make it kind of difficult for me. Sometimes my character would like throw things or drop things or like stand up and punch when I wasn't intending him to do that. But it made for some very comical moments. So yes, all in all, $50 is definitely worth spending on the game. A great game, yeah. All in all. Questions, comments, concerns?
Well, it sounds like it's another one of those kind of cinematic video games that's more like, because you said the Uncharted, and they kind of fit in this category, where it's simultaneously like a structured movie as much as it is a video game.
Yes.
There's that very kind of linear execution that's going to be happening of the story, and you get to play out certain scenes as you go along. And I was interested. I remember seeing it on one of the gaming conventions coverage, and was interested in it then.
Yeah, I mean it's a good game. If you can borrow it, then that would probably be pretty good. You wouldn't have to drop any money on it, because the one drawback is with that type of game, I think it's worth $50 because it's a good experience. But if you get it for less, by all means, jump on it. But so I mean, if you can get it to borrow, I liked the fact that I didn't have to go out and buy a PlayStation 3 and the game in order to play it, and I certainly wouldn't have, because the game's not worth that. But it's a good game worth playing. At some point, it's got a great story. So.
Nice.
I miss gaming.
So Sequoia is going to give us a review of her anthropology book then one of these days.
Or sewing pants.
Sewing pants.
Hey, that went extremely well.
Okay,
No
well,
complaints.
we are running short on time, so maybe she can give us her articles. That way she can actually talk during this podcast.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sequoia.
Okay. Well, the first article that I have is going to be of no surprise to anybody.
Hippies unite.
Kind of, actually, yeah. It's talking about how for the Boulder flood relief, there is a group of people who are going to be there to give out free joints to people who lost their stashes and are stressed out. or lost their stashes and are financially behind now because of it. So yeah, there's like this big group of people who are getting together to give out free joints to all the people who were affected by, well, anybody who wants it, who was affected by the Boulder flood.
And, yeah, because that's in Colorado, and isn't Colorado it's legal there now, right? Or
yep.
Is that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is one of the states where it's legal now.
Yes, and it's also partly, I guess, to protest that there's a like a measure on their upcoming ballot that's going to do like a 15% excise tax on marijuana, and they're trying to fight it. So that too, somehow, I guess, like the most peaceful protest ever.
See, I would think that. I mean, yes, I think it's irritating. Like, okay, so now there's going to be tax on it, so the price could potentially go up depending on what the market kind of decides. But at the same time, you'd think that, okay, if the state is taxing it, it kind of legitimizes it to a certain extent. Like, I mean, in a situation in which like only 5 or 6 states it's legal, and most of the country it's not legal. And a situation where the president of the United States had to say, listen, we're not going to actively go after people in states in which they've legalized it. It seems like by taxing it, they kind of say, hey, it's here, it's going to stay, and we're going to make a little bit of money off of it.
Well, and I mean, like, I guess the thing that sort of I don't get about taxing pot is, like, realistically, how well is that going to work? Because, number one, you already have a built-in amount of people who grow. And we're not talking about large, growing, organizations. We're talking about people who are, growing in their closet. There's a lot of them. So if you don't want to pay tax on your pot, all you have to do is either go to your buddy, I would assume, because I don't know how you'd be paying taxes on that unless they're paying taxes on the seeds and pass that tax on to you. Or you grow your own. Like, I don't see how they're going to realistically be taxing it on a large scale.
Well, it would probably be more of the medicine shops and things like that actually like sell it for, I don't know, medicinal. I mean, because it's completely legal, right? Like, there's like actual like hookah shops and places that sell it, not just medical places that prescribe it, not prescribe it, but fill prescriptions.
Right. It's more than that. Like, it's legal now, which is why I don't see how you could like realistically tax it, because it's not really a taxable thing.
But it is just like alcohol. I mean, as long as there are stores that are selling it, there can be the tax.
Yes, and I mean, that's why I've kind of, like, I mean, I guess, but the thing about, like, alcohol or, like, cigarettes, because you could grow your own tobacco, technically you could do it. The thing is that those, were sort of controlled to begin with on a legal, they were legal and controlled, except for Prohibition, obviously. But they didn't need to, like, set things in standard like they would have to with pot, because everybody's used to buying pot from, their buddy or, somebody they know, or, growing it themselves. So I think that eventually it might get to the point that people go to the store and buy a pack of joints, but right now that's not the reality of it. So how much is a tax realistically going to affect people?
I see what you're saying. See, when I was thinking about it being legal, I just assumed that most people bought it from some sort of a shop. I mean, because if it became legal in Illinois, I would have no idea where to get it from, other than assuming that there's a shop somewhere that I would go to and purchase it from. I didn't think about the fact that, yes, probably right now, within a 1 or 2 mile radius around my house, there is somebody who sells marijuana to people. But I wouldn't even know who that person was, and if it was legal, how I would ever get in contact with them. But I don't know. I mean, maybe there would be an aspect of, if you start to tax it, then you get an amount of people who can say, okay, well, yeah, you're selling it. You seem to be selling it for recreation. Like, if I sell a game to James, people aren't going to come after me for the tax. You know, did I collect tax from him for that sale of that retail item or whatever?
Right.
But if I was selling 40 games a week out of my house, then there becomes a capability where somebody might show up and go, okay, well, you're obviously running a business. You're making this amount of money. You know, you need to claim taxes as a business. Blah 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 blah. Those type of things.
Yeah.
And so maybe through state taxes, there would come a point in which, well, how are you making your $25,000 a year or whatever in this? You know, oh well, it's from marijuana sales. Well, then you need to then those taxes are going to be taken out. And in those cases, then maybe the people would just kind of police themselves, saying, well, I'm not going to pay these taxes, so my consumers are going to.
I'm guessing these people already know how to, like, avoid the government knowing they're making $20,000 a year on pot, though. Just saying.
Yeah,
I mean
yeah. My guess is the tax is only going to be on the stores. They're not, you know, because the goal is, I mean, why legalize it if you're not going to tax it, if you're not going to make any money off it? I mean, that has always kind of been the argument, you know, on the pro side for a government perspective, that you could, you know, make more income. Like, the transactions are happening anyways, so the goal would be for it to move to the majority, you know, store sales, and that's the only thing they would tax. I don't think they'd be specifically looking to hunt down, you know, the guy that's selling dime bags, you know, out of his house, you know, to 7 of his friends, blah, 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 whatever.
Fair enough.
Well, I don't know. I guess I kind of think the whole reason that it's sort of like not become legalized for a long time, I always kind of thought was because they can't realistically make a whole lot of money off of it. At least not for a long time. It's sort of... It would take a lot of, like, time for people to get used to new rules.
Yeah, I would imagine that one of the next steps would be some kind of oversight, and you know, eventually, once it becomes legal across the country, the FDA is going to be not enforcing it as an illegal substance, but doing tests on it that it has to, you know, it has to meet certain specifications and requirements, and the idea is that you have a safer product that's out there for your consumers, and there's not chances that it's like laced with cocaine or something like that, because they have to get tested. And same reason we don't, you know, we try to pull lead-based paints on toys off the shelf, you know, those types of things. You know, I mean, that's the whole sort of idea, is that you can kind of help to protect your consumers.
I know, and cigarettes. I mean, wait. Hey, I'm a smoker. I can say it.
I'm a drinker.
We can tell by your straw.
My wife brought this home for me.
Very friendly of her.
Yeah, it's a mocha frappuccino from Burger King. So
nice.
Tasty. You guys cannot have any.
That's not true. I have a car and money. I could get my own.
You can't have this one. Even if you drove here to steal this from me, it would be gone before you got here.
That sounds like a double dare.
What's your next article, Sequoia?
Better be good, because we're ending on it.
I'm glad I actually got articles then, because...
I have articles. We talked a lot, so...
We did.
Yeah. I got, loads, too.
I had so much trouble finding articles this week, like, so much trouble. And I'm, like, for a while I was just watching movie trailers, because I was kind of like, this is going to be what I'm going to talk about this week, is what new movies are coming out that I'm interested in seeing. And there was only one out of, like, 12 that I watched. There was only one that was good.
Is there another Twilight movie getting made?
Yes.
James, did you ever see World War Z?
Yes, and I liked it.
Did you?
It was good.
I saw it in theaters. Opening week, I think.
The only one that I saw that looked good out of all the trailers I watched today was We Are What We Are. It's some kind of horror film. It looks pretty chilling. and it's that time of year for horror
For
flicks.
the
So
scary movies, yeah.
yeah, we'll see. I'm excited. It's my favorite time of year for movies. So my last article, sort of actually in the same vein, is a detective has come out saying that he has solved the Jack the Ripper case. I mean, this happens every couple of years, but it's always interesting. Like, I think the last time I saw this happen, they said that they thought it was actually a woman, that Jack the Ripper was actually a woman.
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
This time they think it's a sailor. Named
Moon.
Yes.
Sailor Moon.
Carl Feigenbaum.
Never trusted that guy.
There's been theories that it was Lewis Carroll, Vincent van Gogh, members of the royal family, like all kinds of things. And I mean, this kind of stuff happens with old cases all the time. Like, I remember watching a special where this guy thinks that he's like a detective for the LAPD, and he actually thinks that his father was the one who killed the Black Dahlia, which is kind of messed up. But I don't know, I thought it was interesting. This one is actually refuting that a bunch of the like more popularized case details that you see in, like, you know, about sort of organ removal and stuff. You know, getting real dark here. Sort of refuting that you know, maybe didn't happen. But I think it's interesting that people are devoting, because usually it's police who are devoting this much time to solving these old cases with people who are all dead.
Wasn't Jack the Ripper already found by Captain Kirk and his team, his crew on the Enterprise? And then they beamed him out into space. They scattered his remains. Yeah. 23rd century.
Sorry. I feel like this podcast's getting like really dark now.
Yeah, I took it to that organ removal.
Wait a second.
Star Trek
in that episode of Star Trek, they beat the bad guy by getting high.
So it ties in. Yeah. There we go.
There you go.
I knew I picked this story for a reason.
End the podcast. I think now's the time.
Yes.
The podcast nods in agreement.
Yeah. It's the podcast's last showing.
It is the last show for the podcast. It's really sort of sad. So this was our fourth week for September. Next week we have a fifth week, which means it is another I Drink, You Drink. This is a special I Drink, You Drink, not because it's the third one, but because it is also going to be part of a costume party that we will be attending.
With a handful of select friends, yes indeed.
Yeah, for select friends, not for everybody. No, we have like all these people we don't know showing up. But
many viewers.
You will be, yes, all 12 of them, 3 of them, 4. The one that's watching right now. Thank you, appreciate it.
It's the 3 of us in the podcast. That's pretty much it.
We will, however, still be doing a podcast for 1 hour. We're sort of thinking at the beginning of the
party,
beginning or at some point near the beginning of the costume party, before we get really hammered. I'll try to pace myself this time, yeah. So you guys will be able to join us in at least that. It is next month. What was the day?
The 29th.
October.
The 29th. It's going to be a
29th.
Tuesday.
Okay.
We're not sure about our broadcast.
It's a Tuesday.
Yet, but we're positive about our date.
On the day, and yeah. So depending on what time we want to get started, I assume it'll probably be no earlier than like 5:00 p.m. Central Standard, no later than probably 7 or 8 Central Standard. So I mean that's probably a pretty decent chunk of time. That it would probably fall somewhere within there. So there you go. You guys will be able to join us just like the last time. I mean, if you guys want to join us on camera and everything, you will be able to. I think that the Google Hangouts can support up to 10 video chats at the same time, and then however many you want in the chat room can be in the chat room, but video link can only be up to 10. So there you go. Thanks again for joining us, and next week should be the health and spiritual. So we'll let you guys know what our topic is for next week, and we'll see you then.